Let's talk a little bit about Virgin Orbit. It was a really tough year last year for space-related stocks. You've come to market, you've done this SPAC. The stock has taken a little bit of a hit. I think over the last 10 days, I just checked the numbers, we're down by around a quarter in terms of the value. What is it going to take to get space into people's minds, into investors' hearts, to convince them that this is a place that they want to allocate money to? We've seen, obviously, huge amounts of money pouring into the EV sector, other high technology areas. What does space need to do? What does this business need to do? What does Virgin Orbit need to do to convince investors that this is the place to invest in?
Well, so number one, 2021 was an incredibly exciting and successful year for the company. We proved our technology. We went into commercial operations. We put 19 satellites into orbit, from paying customers, from NASA to the international community, the commercial community, and the national security community. So for our company, we pierced the pandemic and drove a new technology into space launch. And what will we have to do? We got to continue to do that. In the last 8 weeks, we penetrated the market more than we ever have. We signed a deal with ANA Airlines for 20 launches. Out of Japan, we signed agreements with new space technology companies like Hypersat for hyperspectral imaging of the Earth, ARCIT, quantum encryption from space, Spire, Boeing, other companies. It's frankly a very exciting time for us, and what we need to do is continue to do that, and that's what we plan to do. We have a rocket that's in Mojave right now, being ready for launch. Over the next few days, we'll launch that. We have launches coming behind it. We have the first launch out of the UK coming this year. Our system is unique in that we can launch from pretty much any airport that can handle a 747 across the world.
I suggest that Guy go on location for that. We will be circling back with you guys for the UK launch. Dan, there are different aspects to space. One is going to be deeper space exploration like Mars, one's the moon, one's space travel, and one is low Earth orbit. And that's satellites that are closer to Earth. And that's really where the fundamental money-making ability is going to be. How big is that addressable market, Dan?
Oh, the market for space, is growing. Overall, space is growing to be well over $1 trillion market from about 400 million right now over the next 15 to 20 years. So the forecasts are very strong. Low Earth orbit, small satellites is the strongest part of that growth. And our system is geared towards making sure they can get to the right orbit at any time to maintain the connectivity to their customers, or from the national security point of view, to do critical missions.
Dan, is there a plan to evolve the business model beyond launching the rockets, the satellites from below a 747? Is there a different model that you could ultimately end up pursuing here? And as an extension to that question, if not, do you see yourself in a different market, for instance, to SpaceX?
So we have reached into very unique markets. I mean, for instance, I mentioned the UK. We can set up shop and give countries the capability to launch from their sovereign shores without them doing much except use an existing airport. There are environmental benefits to it that ground launch doesn't have, as well as flexibility and affordability. So, I mean, there are almost 80 space agencies across the world right now. Only about 10 countries have space launch. That's a huge business opportunity. Additionally, in national security, which is becoming more and more important. I mean, you've read about the Russian anti-satellite test, for instance. We can be available in case a satellite is threatened or damaged and put them up in a moment's notice. And hopefully that incentivizes aggression in space.
Dan, it feels like every company out there is trying to get involved in space to some capacity. Recent Chinese complaint to the UN about a SpaceX Starlink, a near miss with their space station. How crowded is it getting up there, and does that limit the addressable market for you?
What's needed in space really, and I think everybody is in agreement on this, is more international collaboration and cooperation and infrastructure so that we can do space traffic management just like we do air traffic management today. We have the technology, but we haven't made the investment as an international community yet. So the UN, working with the main space providers, really need to provide that. Once they do, I mean, you know, think about the number of aircraft that fly every single day. Space is much bigger. If we can control it and coordinate it in a similar way, there's a huge amount of upside to space. It's pretty much boundless.
Things move pretty fast up there. So, Richard, the SPAC that you're celebrating today is one of a number potentially that you could be involved with. There's been some reporting in the UK over the last few days that you are looking to sponsor a SPAC, let's call it circa 200 million, that could be launched on the Amsterdam market, potentially in Q1. Is that something that we can confirm? Is that something that you're talking about? Can you give us an idea of what your plans are around that?
Not talking about it today. I love Amsterdam. I've lived in a houseboat for a lot of my life. So, you know, maybe I need a new houseboat. So maybe you'll see me in Amsterdam sometime soon.
Okay, let's turn to another potential IPO. Shai's done a great job strengthening and stabilizing Virgin Atlantic. You recently injected some money. Delta also injected some money into the business as well. Does that mean that an IPO is not happening for VA, or are you still considering that as an option?
I personally haven't actually considered it. The team have explored lots of different ways of keeping Virgin Atlantic going and strong over the last 30 months. And I have enormous respect for what Shai and the team have done. They're coming out on the other side now, I think, with the new moves by the British government and getting rid of testing. That's going to mean a lot more people traveling. And I think hopefully we can start looking into the rear mirror when it comes to COVID. So so they've got the money to do the job without IPOing. Who's to know what might happen in a year or two or three's time?